A very good morning and a warm welcome to everyone. Before I hand over the session to Jolly, I would like to remind two things. And basically, these are quotes which I found very useful for me to be motivated. The first quote is, knowledge is the foundation for practice. What I meant by knowledge is the foundation for practice is, unless and until you don't have sound knowledge about a particular subject or a particular matter, it would be very difficult for anyone to put it into practice or to achieve results. That is one which has always been very helpful, and that is one driver which made me to learn and also to acquire knowledge and also implement in real life situations, whether it is a life situation in the family or life situation in the neighborhood or at work. That is one which I would like to draw your attention to. The second is, success begins with self-discovery. That has also been a key driver in what small success which I have achieved in my own personal and professional life. So the moment you are aware what you are, who you are, your capabilities and strengths, I think you are better placed to be successful. So with these two thoughts in mind, that is one, knowledge is the foundation for practice, and also self-discovery is the starting point for success. I would like to just say what sessions we have done till now, that is decoding emotional intelligence, and we also looked at conflict management. I believe these are things where they would help you to first gain knowledge, and later these sessions also help us to discover ourselves. So once we have this knowledge, we can put it into practice in our work life situation. And second, we can also gain success by doing a self discovery. With these two thoughts, I would just hand over this session to Jolly.
Good morning, participants, and looking forward to your participation in this session. So, in the series of programs, this is the third one, which is performance conversations, and I believe this is one of the most important topics because this affects our lives big time and every day. Largely because there are situations where you really can't give enough in terms of remuneration or growth to your team members, but at the same time you need to ensure that they remain motivated and they work the way you want them to work. There's a fine balance. Reaching there and getting them to do their best is an art, and there is a skill involved in that. So performance conversations, we are anyways doing performance conversations, and I believe we are doing it right and we are doing it pretty well, and that is why the team is still working with you and reporting to you. And let's also understand, each one of us sitting here would be somewhere in between, where we have a manager, a reporting manager who we report to, and we have a team who reports to us. In this session, I would largely say, please keep your team in mind who reports to you, and let's not start looking critically at our managers at what should my manager be doing right and has not been doing right. Why? Because this is a managerial effectiveness series of programs. So rather than finding faults in our reporting managers, let's try and see how can we become better managers and what we can do to set the tone of our team right so that they give in their best shot. So the objectives of the program is that we are going to talk about how can we create trust among the team members, how to get into meaningful conversations because that eventually impacts the productivity of the organization, and work on motivators and reduce the demotivators in everyday practice. Now, I will begin with the link of the previous session. The previous session was on conflict management and negotiation, and I'm sure you remember this grid. And we had talked a lot about this grid, and I'm going to take it forward from this grid here. In any negotiation, conversation, in any discussion, in any argument, in any conflicting situation, there are two things which are important. One is the actual result or the substantial benefit in that conversation. And second is the relationship with the individual with whom you're having this conversation. I want you all to pay attention to this one. In any discussion, any argument, any conversation which is conflicting, there are two aspects to that conversation. One is the immediate result, the substantial benefit. लड़ाई किस बात के लिए हो रहा है, झगड़ा किस बात के लिए हो रहा है, that benefit. And the second one is the relationship with the individual. Now, if these two are very, very important, and in every situation now, not both of them are important. So let's look at a situation where it is a one-time transaction that I have with somebody. Let's say I need to fight with the airline guy for my ticket rescheduling. Is my relationship with the airline guy important? No. My result or the substantial benefit is important. So the style that I will use here is I win, you lose. But if the relationship with the individual is also very important, do you think competing or I win, you lose, is that going to work? Why I'm talking about this is because whenever you are in a situation where you are discussing with your stakeholders, with your team members, it is not only the results, but also the relationship with the individual, which is very, very important. And this is something that most of the managers miss out on thinking. I want you to think here, the chat box is open. In a situation which is an organization situation and you need to convince somebody to do the work with you or for you, whether it's your stakeholder or it is your team member, you need that work to be done. But at the same time, your relationship also needs to remain intact. And this is a tough situation. In this situation, which of these four do you think is the most effective way to ensure that you the way of working for a mutual benefit? So what is the effective way? Can I look at some responses here? So with your team members, which of the four options are we going to look at? You can use your chat box and respond. Okay, two, Ivan. Okay, okay. Everybody is in here with me. Why I am repeating this is because many a times we as managers forget that the relationship with my team member is very important, because at the end of the day, they are going to run for me. They are the one who's going to stretch themselves and they are the ones who are going to work. If no, they're going to quit and go. And that is another problematic situation, because you need to get somebody and retrain the person or train the person once again for the same job. And in that scenario also, unless you operate from this right hand corner top window, which is I win, you win, we cannot be effective leaders. So the first thing, the first most important point that I wanted to drive out here is that let's not forget that while work is important, your relationship with your team members is very, very important. And let's look at this window here, which is another very interesting window. Look at ourselves as individuals and not as managers right now. If you see that a human being in the organization has 6 individual needs, while the boss has only one need, and the boss has only one need which says task needs to be done. While the individual has 6 needs, I need to be respected, I need to be listened to, I need to be recognized, I need to be participative, sorry for that error, I need support and assistance, and I need to discuss. When you look at yourself as a reportee, you will realize these 6 needs are prevalent in each one of us and at all times. while the boss has only one need कि काम होना चाहिए. For that काम होना चाहिए, the boss needs to understand and keep in mind that these 6 needs are taken care of. Many of you would be parents of even teenagers, and you realize that today if you tell your kid that just go and study or go and do blah blah thing or just go and do that, they do not work in the same manner. Now many of you would also have a very young millennial generation reporting line to attached to you, and you would have realized it's far more difficult to get work done from them vis-a-vis our own time. And I can say this out of my own experience, because the younger millennials, if you have them in your team, the ones who are in their 20s, they tend to ask a lot of questions. Anybody who has an experience here, you can put up your comments in the chat box. Have you had an experience when you have millennials who ask questions? They want to know why they are doing certain things. Why am I doing this? Why is this fitting into this whole thing? Why not like this? And we who are now an older generation, we tend to get a little aback, because we were not used to asking questions when we started working some 15-20 years back. When we were told to do something, we would put our head down and do it. But today's generation asks questions. Why? Because they need to discuss, they need to participate, they need to be recognized. And at times when they come and ask us questions, we do not like it. We feel that they are crossing their line, and they are not overtly as respectful as they are supposed to be. But that's not the case. Needs were there even in our times, but we did not express. The today's generation only expresses. That's the difference. So while we are having a performance conversation with our team members, whether they are from this generation or that generation, we need to keep in mind of these 6 things. So if you say that, come on, do this, do this, do this, it doesn't happen like that. They want to ask, they want to be heard, they want discussion, they want to participate, they want to be listened to, and that is very, very important from a manager's perspective. Now, I know many of you would be thinking, if the person is sloppy in the work, the person is not meeting their targets or not doing the numbers, what should I even listen to him? Because he would have only excuses, he would have only reasons, he will only ask for more and more, while we are used to working in such stringent conditions and they have got so much, and yet they're never happy. I'm sure most of you would be feeling like that, but let's understand, at the end of the day, you need to motivate them to do that work. Any questions over here? Anybody? So Martin has this response that yes, they need to know the reason why, and so many questions are asked by them. So point number 1, please keep the relationship aspect in mind, because you are there to stay with them. Your reportees are going to work for you. Second is, they have 6 needs, and if they're asking too many questions, it is not because they're disrespectful, it is because that's their need, and that need needs to be taken care of. The needs that they have, if you take care of that, they will take care of your one need that you have, which is to do the task effectively. So coming to performance conversations. So performance conversation is nothing but a formal discussion about an employee's development and performance. It involves setting a plan of action for the next period and reviewing what has been achieved in the last period. Now, let me ask you, how many of you as subordinates, when your bosses say that we need to have a review, do you really look forward to it, or you feel that this is going to be another session where a lot of past skeletons are going to come out? Do we really look forward to conversations which are performance based? We really look forward, which is nice. Okay, so Deep says look forward. If you look forward, I will say it's the credit goes to your reporting managers. Okay, great. Great. So, which means we are in a very transparent organization. So, because most of the responses are look forward. So, if you look forward to your conversations, your reporting manager has to be given credit for that. Now, what is performance conversation? If you think performance conversation is only about giving something to the reportee in return, which could be promotion or bonus or incentive, trust me, that's just one of the smallest aspect of performance conversation. There are so many things beyond that. Some organizations have a very formal way of review, a very formal way, and this is what most organizations do. We have a half yearly review, we have a quarterly review, or we have of course, the main review which happens at the year end. Many of them have a review which is even a month end review, but these are largely on numbers. Many times this review is a one single track conversation, happens from one person talks, the other person defends. If that is what we are thinking about review, we will only see a single digit growth in our numbers. A review is always supposed to be two-way. A review is always supposed to be about both sides sharing certain things. And when I'm talking about performance conversation, if your team member is not open to coming and talking to you about their problems completely, that means that somewhere you have created that facade, or that transparency needs to be a little more over there. Okay. So I can see some good responses here. Now let me show you some data here. The recent Gallup study says in 2017 State of American Workplace Report, which I believe is always more open than Indian workplace scenario, it turns out that only 23% of people receive meaningful commentary from their managers. This means that we need to adopt better practices to drive performance from our subordinates. So if only 23% people receive meaningful commentary, it means we still have 77% people who are yet not receiving exactly the kind of feedback which will help them develop in their workplace. Feedback is a very, very important, it's a backbone of your supervision. And if feedback is not adequate, if feedback is more like an advice, and this is something that I've noticed, there are many people who give feedback like an advice. Do this, do this, do this, do this. This is not right. That is not right. This needs to be done like this. That needs to be done like this. This is gyan. This is advice. This is not feedback. There is a proper mechanism of feedback. From the time I learned the mechanism, I saw my relationships with my co-workers improve. I'm going to share the framework in some time. Let's look at some more concepts. So to give constructive feedback, it is very, very important that we need to keep in mind that what is the purpose of the feedback. If the purpose of the feedback is not to, improve the subordinates' knowledge, skill, or attitude and performance, it will not bring about a positive change. How many of you remember giving a feedback to a subordinate that when you start speaking and saying that this is not happening, this is just not working, this is not how it is, the person starts defending himself right from the word go and defends till the end of it, does not argue too much just because he knows that you are going to write the appraisals at the end of the year, but basically does not have a look of satisfaction on the face. Now, what is the litmus test for this? The litmus test of this is that if the person does not change his or her way of working from the next day, it means your feedback has failed. If you do not see a change in the person's behavior after the conversation also, it means the feedback has failed to achieve its purpose. If you think the purpose of feedback is to create fear, मैंने PIP पे डाल दिया, performance improvement plan, PDP, performance development plan. That's a kind of, that's the last resort. I've put him or her into something after which, this is the way to go out. Either you improve and come back, or you cannot and you are phased out. The purpose of feedback is also to know from the other person that what is the actual problem, why the person is not able to work. Now, if we say we don't have time, that is not the right thing, because we spend a lot more time talking about things which are probably not as important as this. But if the feedback, if there's a proper structure which is followed in a feedback mechanism, it will always reach the desired objective. Okay, I'm looking at the comments here. Yes, so it's a chance to realign with core objectives and bring back the focus if getting distracted. Absolutely. So the purpose of the feedback is to bring back the focus. The purpose of the feedback is not to be a one-sided monologue, one-sided conversation at all. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was doing a coaching session from one of the CXOs of one of the large organizations in the country, and this is an MNC. And she was talking about a particular team member who heads risk for the country, and how he has, in spite of all the feedback and conversation, still does not speak up in the meeting and keeps quiet, does not defend his point. He's very good in his work, he's got the talent, but he is not able to speak up. So she says, now I'll have to let him go. And then I asked her that what are the things that you have done, to ensure that he starts speaking up in a structured forum. And she said, I've told him many times. And yesterday I said that why don't you go and talk to him and tell him that you want to listen from him, change the approach. You really want a person's performance to improve. Instead of telling, try asking for a change. Don't tell. Sometimes if you just ask the person, and don't ask for the heck of it, ask because you're really interested in making that turnaround. You just need to ask the person that what is it and what can you do to make this better, and what is the support that you want from me. Just if you change the, shift the tone, shift the language, shift the questions, shift the literature of the conversation, the results are going to be drastically different. She had this conversation with him. She messaged me at night saying that he's come back with 3 things that he's going to start doing from tomorrow. So I was like, glad, now start grading him on a point scale on a weekly basis and give him an effective feedback so that he starts working. And the moment he sees that there is benefit in doing that, he is going to stick to what he is committed. Your conclusion has failed. Assume that feedback success depends only on senior. Yeah, feedback is both ways. Absolutely, it is both ways. What if you have an adamant subordinate who does not understand? It cannot be a feedback failure on the part of boss, right? Uh, See, there's nothing called feedback failure. It is effective feedback, or so my litmus test of feedback is that after the feedback, if you see a change in the response or behavior, your feedback methodology was right. If the desired change is not there, you need to try something different. That's the simplest thing. What is the purpose? You need a change in the person. You want the performance to go up. You want, so I'm only looking right now at people who we think need to ramp up their performance level. So if you feel that the person has not changed in spite of the conversation, आपको style change करने की जरूरत है. Simple as that. See, everybody is working in the organization for some reason or the other. While we all do the same work in the organization, we all have different anchors, we all have different reasons. So everybody, all employee working in the same organization has a different reason why they work in the PL group. Nobody might share, some of us might not even be aware. Picking up Martin's statement, self-awareness, so that is called किसी को पैसे के लिए है यहाँ पे, somebody has convenience, somebody has an inertia, is used to the ways out here, so doesn't want to change. Somebody likes the organization completely. Somebody is in love with the broking business and this organization is just the right. Somebody has not found something better than this, so is stuck here. So everybody has a reason. Now that if you're spending 8 to 10 physical hours every day in the organization, everybody wants to have a better outcome for that, right? Effort everybody is putting in. Results are not in the same quantum. So which means that the effort that they are putting in those 8-10 hours may not be in the right direction. You have the ladder, your success ladder, leaning onto a wrong wall, so you need to change the focus, the direction of the ladder. The manager, the boss, is the person who has to basically tell him that whether the efforts are in the right direction or not. Why? Because the manager is definitely carrying more experience, more wisdom, more knowledge, and hence has the ability to guide him for towards better performance. But what happens that usually managers, straight from the heart, managers are under too much of stress. They have to show numbers, they have to show performance, they need to see that their dashboard looks good. Abhi ek ek ko kitna dimag kharab karenge, so you need to do. The easiest methodology that we have is that you better do it, you have to do it, and this is the way it is. That seems to work with some people, that does not seem to work with everybody. Places where it is not working, the style needs to change, and that is the minimum important point that I'm trying to say, that the way we were getting feedback 10-15 years back is not the way feedback works in today's scenario. If you really want to have a turnaround in somebody's performance, we need to somewhere change the tone of our conversation, somewhere look at it more deeply, ensure that that person opens up and trusts you enough to speak his or her fear. If as a manager I am not able to inspire trust and my team member does not open up, then somewhere I'm not doing the right things. I need to change the way I've been doing things. Okay, if your son or daughter does not listen to you and does not change, we change our approach in the best interest of our child. Similar effort needs to be put in and tried again unless the subordinate has no receptivity at all. And that's the time when real conversations need to happen. Absolutely. So the way we've been giving feedback is usually the other party starts defending. And this is again, I want all the managers to think here. If during a performance conversation, your subordinate is defending, it means you need to somewhere change your approach and style. Please, this is an introspective point. We are not, asking subordinates to speak up, or we're not asking bosses to think about it. But the only thing that I'm trying to say here is that you need to go back and relive those moments of discussion where you've realized your subordinates are defending themselves. It means that their mental dashboard is shut down and they're just listening to you. No, they're hearing, they're not listening to you. If the feedback is largely focused on ratings and not on development, it means it is not the right method. And if it reinforces negative behavior, there is too much of thrust and emphasis on that. Rather than also looking at positives, it does not achieve its desired objective. And also too much of gyan or too much of advice is never acceptable to anybody. We don't even take it from our parents. Taking it from bosses are all the more difficult. Now let me give you an example of constructive feedback here. You can ask me questions after this. I'm sure everybody would have watched this movie, Dangal. In this Dangal movie, I could not pick up the scene from the movie because it was very long. If you remember the second half of the movie where the daughter, the elder one, goes for the training to a camp, to the national camp, and she's getting trained there. And while her father, Amir Khan, doesn't have access to go and visit her, he has the CDs which he can observe. And they speak on the phone on a real-time basis, and he gives her exactly the way what she should turn and change and or probably develop on, is the example of exact constructive feedback and what it is supposed to be. I'm sure we all remember the movie, and if not, it's a good weekend. Watch this movie and you will exactly know which part I'm talking about. So the feedback that he gives to his daughter on a real-time basis. Now, if you realize, he's not bashing her. He's not scolding her, he's not threatening, no coercion, no belittling, no ridiculing, no telling, ah, tumse nahi hoga, chhod do. He is exactly using the right set of words that is needed to give a constructive feedback. That is what is expected from a manager. So I'll give you an example here, my personal example here, because when I was watching this movie, I was reminded of my own time. So I've been doing training for a very long time. And in 2011, when I joined Kotak as a regional head of training then. Kotak is a large organization and the L&D was aligned for all the institutions at that time. And I was reporting to Anand Diwan, who was my boss. He was the CEO of NIS Pata, so he's supposed to be the god in terms of training. So obviously we all wanted to learn training the way he does and the way he taught me. So every time I would deliver a training, he would get it recorded. And he would say, pick up which part of the entire day would you want to get recorded? And I would pick up certain part, an hour and a half and all. So after that recording, he would call me to his room. He would give me the CD and he would say, put it in the laptop and sit down with a diary and a pen. And you need to play the entire training program and pause exactly at the right timelines and tell me what could have been better and what went very well. So instead of he telling me that I could have done this or I could have done that or this could have been better, it was me sitting and writing down in that diary, pen and paper. And while he was observing, was it time taking? Yes, because it meant around, he would block 3 hours of his time and he was a very senior guy in the organization. But he said that I can see that in you, that you can really make a lot of difference and I'm willing to invest that time for you. And he would have done it probably 3 or 4 times in all the times that I worked. I didn't need it further as per him. So, and I could see, right from I have the handwriting on the whiteboard is not proper, to have not kept the marker properly, to it was a jerky shift of content from one to the other. The objection was not handled properly. That was the minutest. When you're talking to somebody, your toe is pointed on the other side. So that was the extent to which I was able to take down the feedback. Had he told these things to me, I would have shut down my mental dashboard. कि कितना critical है यार. That's what we would say. Why isn't this person happy? And I'm sure as I say this, you would have talked about your bosses like this many a times. But when I wrote it down, my buy-in for that feedback was higher than what my boss would have told me had, it been a one-way conversation. So a general rule for a constructive feedback is ask before you tell. So one thing that you can start doing, very important point out here, before you tell people, always ask people, what went well, what could have been better? That's the way you start all your performance conversations. And when people say, what could have been better? Again, you throw it back to them. So what are you going to do to make it better? And how are you going to how are you going to evaluate whether you are on track or not? Get it from your team members. When they say the buy-in for what an individual say is always higher rather than what is being told to them. So if you can extract this from them, it is definitely a far more useful proposition. So that was about constructive feedback. Any questions here? I'm open to any parallel questions that I'm getting. Somebody talked about an adamant subordinate. There is no adamant subordinate. The subordinate is adamant on the face of it. That's a facade. Internally, everybody wants to improve, let me assure you. Is it not important to recognize a task achieved? Obviously. What should be done in such a situation? I'll come to that, Vijay. So like I said, there are two questions that you ask. One is what went well, and second is what could have been better. So anyway, I'll share a structure with you. So that structure is something that you can follow. And if you follow that structure, the chances are you will never go wrong. There are two types of feedback typically that we need to give. One is related to task and second is related to behavior. Task performance is basically about, the work, the actual outcome, and that is largely in terms of deliverables, numbers, uh, maintaining TATs, documentation, detailing of, even error. So that is your task. And your work-related behavior is your mannerism, the way you connect with people, the way you talk to people, your punctuality, so your discipline and etc. also comes. What do you think is more difficult, task or behavior? Let me throw this question. Which conversation is more difficult to have, task related or behavior related? Okay, so I'm getting some responses. Okay. So I'll repeat the question for all those who were not paying attention. Which of these feedback of the two is more difficult, task related or performance, or sorry, behavior related? Okay. Okay. Behavior related. Okay. And I'll tell you why. And I'm sure we can't share our individual examples here because I assume that all bosses and reportees and everybody is sitting together. So we can't. Task related is very easy to show because you have a proper data. You have an example, you have a specific situation, you have an ongoing mail trail, and hence it is easy to give a feedback. But a behavior related feedback is something which is an observation over a period of time. And that observation over a period of time could be your own or could be by others, or it could be in the form of complaints, or it could be in the form of outcome which gets impacted because of the behavior. When you share this with people, most people are absolutely not going to agree to that, and they will defend till their last breath and say that you are biased, you are unfair, and you play favorites, etc., etc. So work related, task related feedback is easier. Behavior related feedback is very, very difficult. For example, I want to tell my team member that you're very casual in your approach. The moment I say this to my team member will say, where, how, what have I done, kar to raha hu kaam, kab maine kya kiya, and it will end up in an argument. Would also come out of the meeting room and tell others that bosses play favorites, will also instigate another bunch of individuals saying कि देखो आज मेरे बॉस ने ये बोला, कल वो बोलेगा, and this that. The other one would also say, if you tell somebody that you usually you're late, yeah, what is it, you come, no I didn't come late, only yesterday kal train late thi, etc., otherwise I never come late, that's the kind of people defend behaviors. The best way to give feedback related to behavior is to keep records. Preparation, keep records. So for example, I know a particular team member comes late every day. What I will do, I will keep a complete tally of 15 or 20 days or 1 month of timing for that person every day. 10, 10, 10, 15, 10, 20, 10, 8. And when you show this to that person and say, see, this is the way you have, this is your entry time every day, the person will not have a choice because you are giving data. So whenever you need to give a feedback related to behavior, listen to this one carefully. Whenever you need to give a feedback related to behavior, please gather sufficient data. Please gather sufficient data. If it is about being relaxed or casual in terms of responses to clients and customers, have a folder created with 10 such mail trails of customers. Show it to the individual and say that this is it. Now tell me, what do you have to say? How can we work on this situation? If feedback is based on data, it will definitely create the impact. Does feedback vary or is it constant each time? It varies. Feedback is very much situational. Different situations call for different feedback, and there is no one right way of doing it. More so, feedback is given even to the same person, varies as per the situation. Sometimes you need to well cushion it, and sometimes it could also be firm or even assertive. I love this example of, Kambli and Sachin Tendulkar, and whenever we get a session on feedback, a case study of this one definitely throws up in my system. So we all know that these both started their career almost actually at the same time. A lot of experts in cricketing world believe that Kambli was far more talented than Sachin Tendulkar was, and Kambli has been compared to Don Bradman, etc. All those biggies that we can think of. Now, keeping his personal behaviors of drug abuse, etc., on one side, I'll cite this example about their technique of playing. So it is said that Kambli was a very good player, but he had a weakness whenever he needed to play a short pitch ball, and he would usually be get out on short pitch balls, and he just didn't know how to work on that one. He had been given this feedback n number of times by the coaches, etc., but it seems that he never worked on those feedbacks, and he thought that his talent is pretty good enough and he will be able to sail through. But in the international cricketing, obviously there is no way how you can hide, and it got exposed, and he never took feedback, even when it came to abusing his life. And that is how a talent got wasted, because he was never open to taking a feedback. At the same time, Tendulkar was someone who always gave heed to the feedback from whichever corner it came and worked on it. So this is a clear-cut example of two people who started at the same time, who were almost equal in terms of their capabilities and talent. But just because one paid attention to the feedback and the other party did not, rather was very careless, defended, saw a downturn in their career. So every time when we think about a feedback, all of us who are subordinates here, let's understand sometimes what our bosses are saying is in our own interest. And rather than defending it, if we can pick up on that one, it is really going to help. So let's move on to the next part, which is in self-assessment. So there are 9 questions that I'm going to ask you, 4 on this slide, 5 on the next slide. As bosses, please pick up your pen and paper, or on your mobile phone if you wish to. You can just take a note of yes or no. Trust me, we are not going to ask you for your scores, but let's do this self-assessment to see whether as manager, are we in the right direction for performance conversations, or do we need to change? Let's be honest, like I always say, it is your cell-phone development improvement plan. So let's move on to the questions. So every question would have an answer of either a yes or a no. So the first question is, do you interrupt with solutions before someone has finished explaining the problem? Here, by someone, I mean the team member or your reportee. Yes or no? Think about it and answer. You're doing it in a separate piece of paper. I am not. So I'm not looking at your responses here. I want you to keep a score of the responses. So pick up a pen and a paper, or on your mobile phone, just start doing a YN, yes, no. So not for the chat box. This is for your own self-assessment. So the first question is, do you interrupt the solutions when someone has finished before someone has finished explaining the problem? Do you tell people what to do rather than questioning to help them find their own answers? Do you believe there's only one way to handle a situation? Okay, Mitesh, I think we are answering on the chat box. I don't expect you to answer on the chat box. I've got 3-4 people, Praveen, Mitesh, Jitendra Singh, Vinay. Please pick up a pen and a paper and do it for yourself on a pen and a paper. This is not for us. This is your own self-assessment. And like I say, please be honest, because if you say a no, and if your team member says a yes, it means you need to work on your self-awareness. Okay. The fourth question, do you get annoyed when you have to go over an issue again and again? With your team member, if you need to go over the same issue again and again, do you get annoyed? Question number 5, do you throw people into new experiences without being around to help them out? You tell them to do it without coaching them or hand-holding them? Question number 6, do you make promises that you don't or can't fulfill? So promises could be regarding promotion, increment, chutti, etc. Have you made promises to people that you don't or you can't fulfill? Yes or no? Even if you've done it once, even if with one person, I think it should be a yes. Do you get upset when someone you believed in lets you down? Do you occasionally lie about opportunities for advancement or promotion to avoid addressing the limited available options? And the 9th question is, do you gossip with other managers about your team members? Okay, 8th, let me explain the 8th one a little more. Do you occasionally lie about opportunities for advancement or promotion to avoid addressing the limited available options? So while you know that there is no scope for a promotion right now for this individual because there is nothing in the top and you don't really see a lot of scope for this person. So once in a while we start lying, ki don't worry, the organization is growing in X field and we are, you know, expanding there, and there would be so much for you, and I will see to it that you get something like that. So we are showing a carrot, you know, in a corporate language, you're showing a carrot which might not even exist. Or even possibly in my heart as a manager, I know the person doesn't have the capability to make to the next level, but I do not have the heart to say this to the person, and hence I keep on showing him some carrot. You know, that's what I mean by saying this. Now for these 9 questions, if you have fair, if you have even 4 yes, you need to change. I'm sure many of us would always like to answer a no, na na na, मैं ऐसा नहीं करता हूँ. But again, you know, if I would ask your team members and if they would also say the same thing about you, only then the response is valid. So anyways, we are not going to ask your team members to do that about you. But what I'm trying to say here is that in our heart, we know, you know, this is a very, you know, the 8th question or 6th question, these are ways that we as managers look at to wriggle out of a difficult situation to motivate a person temporarily so that he works. But this does not last long. This has a life cycle, and it's important to be truthful. It's important to, but then again, the other argument is that people would say ki if I'm truthful, people would leave. So then, which means your feedbacking has to be right. You need to tell the person what is the right place that they need to work on, and what is the right skills that they need to develop to move up to the next level. So it's as simple as that. Many times people ask, what is wrong with question number 7? Why can't I get upset when someone you believed in lets me down? Uh, Getting upset shows that your emotional control is very low. So you can be disappointed, but you can't be upset. I'm disappointed with what you've just done is a thorough profession. But if I'm upset, it means I'm losing emotional control, or I am too emotionally involved with that person's work. And that, as a manager, is not a very good place to be in. Any questions here? Any questions about these questions that you want to discuss? So the role of the leader is divided into 4 different categories. As a leader, you need to be the process partner. So you need to go through the process, owner of the whole process with your team member. You need to be the capability developer. You need to find out the area of improvements for the individual and ensure that they work on that. You need to be the supporter. So when they have had a fight with some other team, you need to have their back. And that is very important as a manager. You need to cover them when they need you. Later in private, you can reprimand them, punish them, do whatever. But in public, you need to support them when they need it the most. And also, you need to be a thought partner, which means we are talking about innovative, unique methods. We can always think about creative problem solving, thinking about the futuristic thinking. You're talking about the thought partner. So you need to somewhere motivate your team members to improve in their skills, read up more, know about industry's best practices, share this kind of discussion. You need to have this kind of relationship, and your role needs to move amongst these 4. If I have to ask which of these 4 comes naturally to you, what would be your response? So which of these 4 comes to you naturally, and which of these 4 do you think you are best at as managers? Can I look at your responses? Okay, supporter. Shiv Kumar says she's supporter. Capability developer, supporter. Can you repeat the question? My question is that of these 4 roles, which of this comes to you naturally and easily? Where do you see yourself as a leader, as a manager, amongst these 4 roles? Process partner, capability developer, supporter, or thought partner? Process partner, thought partner. Okay, process partner. Please, more responses. Supporter, thought partner. Okay. Okay, so with all the responses that I've got at least 15, 20 responses here, more than that. One thing which is clearly missing here is that I don't see capability developer being a very prevalent practice here. While now I can see 2 responses. So remember, being a capability developer is very, very important. You need to develop your team. And why I say this is because many times managers think that their team members are a threat, and hence, they don't want to spend too much of time developing their skills. But that's actually a myth. If you make somebody ready for the next level, you get ready for the next level. So to ensure that you have all these four things in your armor, you need to ensure that your communication level with your team members is perfect. So you need to keep them informed about goals and plans. Be transparent with your team, please. That's very important. What you hear from the top needs to cascade down, of course, with necessary filters, but keeping people in the dark, always show them the larger picture, the bigger picture, the buying will be more. Trust me when I say this, whenever you create ownership, people will buy it from you and they will push themselves to perform better. Keep commitments if you have promised, else don't promise. Don't promise the moon, and if you have promised the moon, you better deliver it, and support them when they need it. These three things will ensure that trust is there between the team members and the manager. What if the HOD is not a supporter? I'm assuming the HOD is sitting in the class room today, and the HOD will understand the meaning of being a supporter. So it's important to be a supporter, because if I do not support my team when they need it the most, the team will never have the sense of belongingness or affiliation or ownership to the manager. So if you want that loyalty and that commitment of your team members, you need to support them when they need it. Also, question them, the framework that I was talking about. Always ask them, how do you connect with them? Rather than tell them, always ask them first. Then listen to them properly, and after which share with them what you have to say. So it's a three-step process. Normally what happens, we share, we tell, and then we want to pressurize to get their obedience and their commitment. That as a feedback methodology, or that as a performance conversation, does not give you results. Let's be clear on that. So you need to ask, you need to listen, and then you need to share. Remember the three-step process, and your focus of discussions should be on three areas. First is skill development. Second is goal planning. I'll share the presentation with you, so then you can, have a detailed understanding of this. First is skill development. Your performance discussion should be around skill development first. Second is goal planning or career planning. You need to ask them to work on their goal setting. When I say goal setting does not always mean in terms of salary and designation. It also means learning new skills, acquiring new skills, working on their shortcomings, working on their area of weaknesses, building on new strengths, getting new certifications if need be, being able to solve or reach a particular level by their own ability, etc. So these kind of, goal planning, career planning, know it, understand. And this is the process partner that I'm talking about, and here you can also be the thought leader. It really helps build in that connect. And the third one is problem solving. If you ask what improves from the time that we join an organization at the bottom level to the time that we reach at the top, it is basically a problem solving ability. That's it. So if you can solve bigger problems and better problems, you get elevated in the organizational organogram. So ensure and help your team members become better problem solvers. So they should be able to analyze a situation, look at it holistically, work on what is needed to solve that particular issue, know what are the networks or what are the options available. And this will happen if you share a lot of situations with them. Ask them to join you when there is a situation. They can observe you through a crisis, and then soon they will be able to do it all by themselves. So your focus, so again, coming back, repeating here, three things that you need to do: question or ask, listen what they say, and third is share and tell. And your focus of discussion should be in terms of, first is their skills, second is their career planning and or their goal setting, and the third one is problem solving. Now this is the sphere of independence for a subordinate. If you look at this triangle, this triangle has got 6 rungs or 6 levels. At the lowermost chain, is my reportee who basically waits for your instructions. You will tell him what to do, he will do after that. He will not initiate anything. Huh? He is going to wait. आप उसको बोलो ये कर दो तो वो करेगा, आप कुछ नहीं बोलो वो कुछ नहीं करेगा. वहां से elevate होकर he reaches the next level. He asks, what do I do or what should I do? Now this is a growth journey from waiting what to do to reaching a place where he goes and asks, what should I do? After being here for some time, he has to move to the next level that he recommends. Should I do this? And he is recommending what should be, if he can do this. If he gets an affirmative response more often, his confidence starts building, and then he reaches the next level where he does it without asking you, but after doing it comes and reports to you that this happened and I've done it. After being here for a long time, he reaches the next level where he initiates action. He does everything. He's become independent, but he reports to you periodically and keeps you in the loop or keeps you informed where it is needed to be. If you look at all your team members, you will see everybody falls somewhere in these 5 levels. They are somewhere in these 5 levels. A good manager is the one who has been able to elevate people from the bottom to the top. Now, every subordinate will take their own sweet time to reach to the top, and everybody has their own way of interpreting your reactions. Also, the kind of reaction or the kind of response or the kind of support you give to your team members, they will be able to move up the value chain. They will be able to move up the ladder. If you see, most of your team members are in level 3, 2, or so the lowermost level is level 1, then is 2, 3, 4, 5 is the highest and 5 is the best. So if you see most of your team members in level 3 or 2, it means you need to inspire trust and confidence in your team members. You need to work a lot on your supervising capability. If there are many team members on 4, it's a good thing. You somewhere need to help them reach level 5. If you see maximum team members in level 5, I think you are doing a brilliant job. And that's the place where ideally as a boss, you also have a block of time where you can be in the topmost rung of your boss's organizational, the triangle, the sphere of independence. So basically the journey has to be from level 1 to level 5. While this is a very interesting, structure, I have seen in many organizations, there are team members who have actually transitioned from level 5 to level 3. So my team member initially was somebody who would do his work very well. He would report periodically, he would initiate the action. But today he comes and checks with me before doing something. If you have a team member who is doing that, it is a huge amount of question raised towards you why this has happened. If you have snapped at your team member every time, if you have been very critical in terms of giving them feedback, or a mistake that they have done in the past, you have dragged it too much, or you have not supported them when they needed it the most, they will obviously do a backward transition from level 5 or 4 towards 3 and 2. So as a manager, this raises a huge amount of question on the way you are managing your team. So ideally, for a good manager, you should have all your team members on level 4 and 5, and newcomers need to be reaching somewhere level 3. I hope we are good here. So if your team members are on level 5, you are in a good place to be. Any questions here? A person is at level 3, 4 in his previous job, but starts at level 1, 2 in his new job. This rates the person lower than his capability by his immediate manager. What would you suggest to managers with such team members, or how should managers identify the capability level and not rely on what they see? So here the person would have been great in his previous job because he has been doing this over a number of years, so he's got experience. Now when he starts at level 1 and 2. Now to bring them up on this chain, the manager has a huge role. So how will the person come up in that chain? The person will come up if the person is confident of what he's doing. So in this case, the manager needs to instill and inspire confidence, needs to do some bit of hand holding initially, when they are in level 2. In level 3, every time that the person comes to you, for that permission, you need to somewhere instill that confidence that he's doing right and he's really good and need not worry. If at all there is a mistake that it happens at level 3, see, typically what happens, I've seen in level 3, somebody makes a mistake and the bosses lash out. The person immediately goes back to level 2. So if the person makes a mistake at level 3, please do not be critically, rather support. And at this time, again, you as a manager play a huge role to ensure that if not at level 4, he should stay at level 3, should not go down to level 2. So you need to open that channel of communication. You need to instill that confidence. You need to make them feel that you're going to support them. The trust and that channel of communication, if it is open, the person will automatically, in a matter of 6 months or a year, will move up to level 4 or even 5 for all you know. Deep, I hope I've been able to answer your question. Okay, how should managers identify the capability level? If the recommendation that he makes every time, if 9 out of 10 times is correct, the capability is there. And if you see that that capability is not there, then you need to have conversations for his skill development and problem solving ability. And if you keep doing that over a period of time, soon that person will again transition to level 4. Are we good? Any more questions here? This is very important. This is one of my favorite slides whenever I talk about performance conversations, because your conversation is going to your performance conversation, your everyday interaction, you're dealing with your team members, the way, the mannerism is basically going to make them jump these levels up and down. For the organization to prosper, it is very, very important that the person needs to be in level 4 and 5. If you find all your team members on level 3, you basically have a very overcrowded plate. As a manager, you are doing more work than your team members are doing, because every time if you need to make a recommendation and you need to approve of everything, your hands are full. Where do you have the time to reach your boss's level 4 or level 5? So if you really want to grow in the organization, I repeat, there are many times we think ki boss is insecure here, etc. If you really want to move up the ladder, you need to ensure that most of your team members are in level 4 or 5, because if they are in level 3, you do not have time. You are always in a burnout stage and you're busy doing transactions. You're busy in executions. You are not able to think strategically, or you are not able to think from a larger picture. So that clogs your efficiency also. So please keep this in mind. In business like are where clients' money is involved, don't you think level 3 is enough rather than reaching level 4 or 5? Nitin, I will say no, because even you today as a manager, if you're at level 4 or 5, you reach there because somebody trusted you. And level 4 is a good place to be for most people. Level 5 is only meant for veterans or people who become very good at it. But if you always keep them at level 3, you are always busy in transactional conversations. Of course, you know your team's capability best. But honestly, do you always feel, or do we always feel that we have always got a better acumen for certain things rather than team managers? I will differ, because rather team members, because I have seen that sometimes your team members are equally capable, if not better. We might have more experience, but certain times they tend to look at things which we might also miss. If you really help this person develop, he can become one of your strongest assets. So, age and experience and capability may not go hand in hand always. So this is my observation across sectors and vectors and organizations. Many times it's not to do with experience, it's to do with the acumen and capability. And as a manager, if you realize that, it's your ability, it's your duty or responsibility to polish that skill so that the person goes up in the ladder. So that you should do. Or there are various ways. Create buddy systems amongst a fresher and an experienced. Together also they will learn and do a lot of things. The idea is that your plate should be empty. Okay, so let's do this little exercise. What are the things that your leaders did that motivated you and that demotivated you? Let's look at motivation factors, because we need to work on that one. So you all can type on the chat box. Let's not do it on a pen and paper. So whatever you think your managers did that motivated you at your workplace, why don't you write it down in the chat box? No. So, Sivraj, I'm not looking at, okay, I can say you're demotivated, but my question is, can you look at those things that your leaders have ever done for you that has motivated you? What motivates people in your experience? Okay, so Martin says autonomy, trust, okay. Liberty, freedom is all we need these days. More, I'm looking at more responses. Encouragement, okay. Trust, Martin says, okay. Confidence, Paresh says, confidence in you, so freedom and trust, yes, to achieve scale. Okay. What else? There are no right or wrong answers. Huh? Whatever you feel your leaders have ever done. Delegation, Samir says. Acceptance, okay, nice. Can I see some new names also? Okay. Understanding. Faith. So I see a lot of it coming back to faith and trust, education, knowledge, recognition, always standing up for any help. Lovely. And we all praise. Jimit, very good. Freedom to fail. Wow, Sandeep, that's awesome. And they say, if you need to fail, fail fast, because then you have time to grow. I mean, that's one of my favorites. Yes, so this is all we have from our experience, believing in us to do the job in the right way, confidence, freedom, lovely. And let me show you what I have: empowering, participation. Top 5 motivators. This is a survey result in the organization. Appreciates and recognizes, especially publicly. This is one, the most important one. Second one is giving bigger responsibility, challenging assignments, and beliefs in me. So this is all about the trust that we were talking about. Involves in decision-making process and listens to their feed forward and ideas. This is number 3. Number 4 is helps in developing me and in meeting my goals, targets through great feed forwards, sending me for training programs, etc. And stands by the team in time of difficulty. Now, these are 5 top motivators, which is an industry survey, organizational survey. And this is what the team members say that motivate them to come to work and give in their best shot. So all of us in this classroom today, please take a good look at these 5 factors and ensure that you try and inculcate at least 1 or 2 of those in your everyday schedule, because this is what is going to help your team members perform better. It's never shouting or reprimanding. It is rather appreciating and recognizing, especially publicly, giving them better responsibilities, standing by them at the time of need, involving them for decision making, helping them meet their goals, targets, giving them the right feedback, sending for training programs, etc. So please, very proper 5 points, which are missing many a times, yes, because we get so carried away with the way we are working. So my request to all the managers sitting here in this room is, please at least inculcate one or two of these and make it a part of your leadership style, so that your team members will give in their best at all times. Okay, now let's go to the 5 demotivators. But before that, let me hear from you all. What do you think are demotivators for the team members? Let's look at demotivators. What demotivates people? Time mismanagement, Paresh, that's a good one. But apart from that, time mismanagement, criticism, Lata says perfect, but still we criticize, we're so used to it. Body language, which is like, I'm not going to take it, okay. Delay in decision making, ignorance, yes. Inability to appreciate talent, yes, Martin. Unhealthy work culture, can you explain a little more? Unhealthy work culture, Vijay? I mean, what is the meaning of unhealthy here? Because it's a very uh, open to interpretation. Actually, lack of support is again insecurity, criticism, politics. Okay, okay, interesting. Demotivation, someone is biased with the entire team. Okay, but why would one be? Sarcasm, lovely. Criticism in public. Yes, good one, Shailesh. Okay, so let me show you what I have. Again, from the industry. Reprimands in public. Lashes and sarcastic comments. Does it happen? Yes, it does. Micromanages, sits on their heads and doesn't give them enough space to work. I know what this means. So, indecisive, slow in decision making, constant flip flop. So does not stand by the decision, keeps on changing. Kabhi ye, kabhi wo. Plays favoritism and is partial amongst team members, creating divisions within the team. So divide and rule doesn't really work. And takes credit away from subordinates. Now this is industry's, not really industry, organizational survey results. Now, if you put a hand on your heart and look at this slide, would you say that you as a manager have never done these 5 things? You really can't. So the point is, if you've been doing this, trust me, your team members would not be motivated to work, would not want to come to office, would not want to pick up your phone, will not be open to listening to you, will defend everything that you say. So even if you're right, they will always look at you as someone playing favorites and somebody who's not a professional, etc. So I have, when I was working, I've had an experience of a boss who was a micromanager, and it was really very difficult, to such an extent that he would also try to know how much time you take while having lunch, etc. There were other members in the team. He would actually count the number of cigarette breaks one would take, and it was like, matlab, aisa kaun karta hai? Again, there are bosses who come out of their cabin and start shouting at people in the open, the floor. So never do that. Please do that in a meeting room, alone in the cabin, or get 2 people and talk, but never publicly. Sarcasm does not really work with team members. You need to own your team members. Many a times favoritism, managers don't even play, but they get accused for that. And I always look at it very subjectively, because favoritism is something. So I would always play favorite for a team member who does not question and does things the way I ask him or her to do it. I would always play favorites, or would want to promote a team member who's willing to push the extra mile for me, will come whenever I want, will do whatever I say, will behave the way I will say, will exactly get me the right kind of information, etc. So if I have a team member who is doing all this for me, at the end of the year, somewhere my scale will obviously be tilted towards a team member um, who is an asset for me, rather than somebody who's always a problem for me. So, favoritism is something which I look at it very subjectively, because I mean, I always have experience that, you ask for a certain data, there would be a certain team member who will always give it to you before time, will give you exactly the way you need, will not question you. You say anything and it is done. Whereas there will be some who will always accuse, will be unhappy, will be switched off, will defend, will get into trouble, will not want to work, etc. तो फेवरेटिज्म तो होगा ना यहाँ पे, ये वो सारे टीम मेंबर्स के लिए जो कहते हैं मेरा बॉस फेवरेट्स प्ले करता है, समवेयर आई थिंक यू शुड आल्सो लुक एट योरसेल्फ एंड सी दैट हैव यू बीन a good team member all along, or have you been been a difficult subordinate to handle with. Favoritism goes against those who don't speak so oftenly. I think it's more about performance also, Mitesh. It's about performance and being compliant. It's also about aligning to the organization and team rules. It's also about creating less nuisance for others. So somebody who is doing all of these things will, like creating nuisance, not being aligned, the boss will always look at that person with a little bit of, that let me maintain the distance. So if we question ourselves sometimes, that favoritism, if it is working for me, brilliant. If it is working against me, it's an introspective point to see that, are you doing everything right what a team member is supposed to do, or are you being a difficult subordinate to handle? So if you are, there is a problem. So let's work on that. Also, different level of results require different levels of motivation. So these are some of those which is usually practiced, and this is from the BFSI industry. Appreciation mails, marking supervisors, these are small little things if you do. And as human beings, we always value appreciation. If you go back to your school and college, you will remember that all the teachers ever, if they have praised you, we still remember those words and we remember those teachers. We remember all those good things that they ever said about about us, largely publicly, if they've ever said anything good about us. So that is the extent to which we remember appreciation. So appreciation, it goes a long way in building strong relationships. So, if we do that, it will ensure that my team member is aligned with me. So appreciation mails, cake cutting, etc. is largely a celebration. Bouquet, a handwritten note, etc. ये थोड़ा foreign concept है, मगर try करने में कोई हर्ज नहीं है. Appreciating in front of the entire team, or team meetings, or morning huddles. Opportunity to take on a bigger responsibility, so give them something bigger, featuring in the company's newsletter, etc., or employee of the month, wall of fame. So you can create something in your own team. So these are motivation factors. Many people like to push for it. People love competing environments. So these are some things that you can also create. I will share this presentation with you all, so that I want you to pick up these things. See, most of the things that I'm talking in this training program are practically very, very easy to implement. And of those 50 ideas that I'm going to drive, or I am driving in this session, even if you pick up 3 or 4 and you make that change in your managing style, you will start seeing visible results in the motivation level of your employees. So my suggestion is, after the training program, once I send you the presentation, please take a good look at the presentation, pick up 3 or 4 things, I can also go to the extent that you can send me mailers, that what are those 4 things or those 5 things that you have decided to implement. And, because sending an email is a commitment, or you can send an email to Martin. And probably, once you realize that you have committed, you might also start following it. Whatever you commit, click a picture of that. Whatever you write in that email, click a picture of that, keep it on your mobile phone, look at that every day once in the morning, so that your entire day you are able to comply with what you have decided. um, Anything like this just requires practice, and once you make it a part of your daily routine, it becomes a part of your DNA. So I would suggest that please start doing these. These are some of the good practices. These are the only things that create differences. There's nothing beyond this. कोई rocket science इसके अलावा है नहीं. But normally हमारी आदत ऐसी है कि हम appreciate नहीं करते हैं. Most leaders don't appreciate because they are not in the habit of appreciating. Who has the time to appreciate? Or, even at times, how does it help? In fact, the school of thought from where I come, we were told that if you appreciate somebody too much, it gets into the person's head. Who will start thinking of no end in himself or herself. So don't appreciate too much. I come from the belief system that even as kids, we really had to work very hard to get that appreciation from the parents, because they always felt that you have to work very hard to get that appreciation. Hearty, I mean, getting that marks is like basic. And precisely for that reason, even today, we don't appreciate our children. In fact, I have tried this all by myself also. When you need to appreciate somebody, आप क्या बोल सकते हो? You say very good, great, good, keep it up, well done. इससे ज़्यादा vocabulary नहीं है हमारे पास. We don't have more words rather than this. Good, keep it up, well done, I'm proud of you, you had it in you, brilliant, good job, that's it. But if you have to criticize somebody, there is so much that you can say. There is so much. You can go just on and on and on and on. You can write essays on that. So while you're appreciating, we don't have words. Imagine our mental conditioning. But if we have to criticize somebody, reprimand somebody, scold someone, we can just go on and on and on. Now, this shows how we've been exposed to right from the beginning. And that is exactly the reason why most leaders don't appreciate. But my suggestion here is please start appreciating. Some of you might also say, my team members are such, they don't deserve an appreciation. अरे कुछ तो deserve करते होंगे. Time पे आ जाते वही deserve कर. At least appreciate that one. Somebody keeps the desk clean. At least you can appreciate the person on that. Somebody has a very clear-cut transaction. At least you can, or somebody handled a client very well. Appreciate on that. If you look for ways to appreciate, you can always do a good job. Also, please don't go overboard while appreciating. Stick to the facts. So appreciation is nothing but the act of recognizing a person's positive qualities, attitude. You don't have to overdo it. It shouldn't seem like flattering. It shouldn't look like you're trying to butter up a person so that he works a little more for you. No, it's just acknowledging. I'll say, even if you don't look at it as an appreciation, I'll say acknowledging, oh, you're wearing a nice shirt. That's it. It's an acknowledgement. Somebody felt good. You made somebody's day. That's it. You need to convey. If I ask you right now, had this been a classroom session, and I usually make people do this, if you think right now of 2 situations in the last 15 days where you could have appreciated a team member and you did not, I'm sure you will come up with at least 2 such situations where there was an opportunity for you to thank or appreciate a team member, but you did not because you thought baad mein kar lenge, or it isn't so big, or it's a part of his duty, or where is the time, or it skipped my mind. Usually in a classroom session, I make people pick up the phone and do that calling at that time. I remember doing this in Axis Bank, and this was a training for vice presidents of, and this was for a particular team which was into loans, the liabilities. It was the asset team for Axis Bank. And I asked them to call up their team members if they feel, I gave them 10 minutes of time to finish a conversation in the classroom, if they feel that their team member deserved an appreciation and they did not. After calling, all my participants were laughing because their team members were shocked and surprised at what's wrong with boss. In fact, some of them even went on to ask that boss, सब ठीक ठाक है ना, मतलब काम से निकाल रहे हो क्या? You know, am I being fired is what some people asked. Some of them even asked that boss, are you quitting? Or something has happened, what? So in fact, one of them also asked the boss that who's joking on my boss's phone. You know, that is the disbelief that they had that their manager would appreciate them. So let me throw this exercise to all of you. Between today and tomorrow, at least make that one call to a team member who you thought is worthy of appreciation. Let's try and do that. You don't have an idea. It builds bridges like you have no idea. If you do that, it is really going to help you improve your relationship with them. So survey says that in this domain state, consistently appreciation, recognition are #1 motivators for subordinates. Survey says, Jolly Priya doesn't say, so remember that. It helps develop good working relationship. It encourages the subordinates to take constructive feedback a little more seriously. So if you've appreciated, if you say good things only, then the person will be open to listen to bad things. If you always say bad things, they will say this man has got nothing good to share, is always unhappy. It reinforces good working habits and behavior, but always remember, today you might do it after 15 days, but normally appreciate it right at that time. Don't wait for an opportune moment. Don't wait for a monthly review or a quarterly review. No, do it then and there. It creates more impact. Avoid personal attacks and taunts, always. Even if you lose control, don't. Whenever you need to give a feedback, always use a sandwich method. Positive, negative, positive. Always start with positive. So like I said, first you ask, then you listen. And then when you share, in the sharing, start with positive, the good things that that person has done, then give off, I will not say negative, I'll say area of improvement. And then positive. And while you're doing the sharing part, keep those three things in mind: the skill development, the goal planning, and problem solving attitude. Where does sandwich method works? Sensitive issues. If you're giving a feedback for the first time, it really works very well. But if it is a repeated issue, it's a small issue, you don't have to follow a sandwich method. You can just go on and have that single transaction. Okay, favoritism goes against those who don't speak. True appreciation also needs courage. Can you show the two previous slides? Okay, Mitesh, I will go back to the slides. If it's not to do repeated feedback given by you, so if it's a repeated thing that you need to say again and again, you need not go to the sandwich method. You can go by the simple tell method if it's a repeat thing. So I believe this is what you want to see, Mitesh. This one? I'll anyways be sharing the presentation with you. Yeah. Okay. So moving forward. Lastly, appreciate in public. Example, Marcus sees it the boss in a team meeting, a thank you note. So when I started the session, somebody had mentioned that you're only talking about area of improvements, you're only talking about negative feedback. But I had saved this for the last because appreciation is also very important. In fact, I have not given you any task to do in giving a area of improvement feedback, but I've definitely given you a task for appreciation, which I believe you're going to use. When you are doing a performance conversation, there is something that you should avoid using. Despite the fact this behavior is not acceptable at any rate. In spite of telling you this before, regardless of our earlier conversations, even though you prepared, that meeting went well, but you know, the moment you say the word but, everything spoken before that becomes null and void. You did the fact find well, however, although you were able to handle the objection, you know, so these are things, this language as per NLP shuts off the mental dashboard of individuals, whether they are your team members or it is your children. If you use the words that is mentioned in the bold here, in the caps, these words tend to have an effect on our mind that we stop processing. Instead, the part of our brain that gets triggered is to defend and not accept what is getting spoken. So please keep this in mind. If need be, इसका print out निकाल के आप अपने desk पे लगा लेना, so that आप ये use ना करो. I have a video over here which I want to show. So I'll just do a quick little recap before I show the video. So can I look at my participants, my attendees, typing in the chat box what they remember, what we have covered since morning before I do the recap. So one thing that as per you was the key point that you have learned since morning. Quickly, let's start typing in the chat box before I do the recap. One key message that you've picked up since morning. One key thing that you have resonated with, or one key thing that you think was the most important. Spheres of independence, okay. Lovely. In fact, that's one of my favorite. Learn to appreciate, says Vijay, great. Cooperate, 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 okay. Never criticize, pyramid of growth, pyramid of empowering the subordinates, okay. That's a very interesting, you know, way of looking at your journey as a profession, okay. What else? Encourage, motivators and demotivators, development, performance, be a capability leader, personal development, stand by me. There are 6 things. This is one thing that the boss needs. Amazing. Yes. Motivated. So see, you all are doing the recap all by yourself. Appreciate in public, reprimand in private. What is the role of the leader? Yes, there are 4 roles that we have talked about. Capability development is very important. There are 6 needs of the individual needs of the individual, the team member, and 1 need of the boss, which is the task need, and because of which we need to keep in mind it's a collaborative relationship. So while I need the person to work, I cannot lose out on the relationship. The focus of discussion where it should be, believe and trust in your team members, ensure that the trust is there, and role of the leaders to retain market position. Acha, ye maine bola tha kya? Okay, the spheres of independence, we have 5 levels. The way you deal with them basically shows their journey in the transition. Okay. Working as a team, you can achieve any and every task, obviously, at all times. I also said we all need to look at one place where we could have appreciated and we haven't. So we're going to appreciate a team member at least. I would be more than happy. I also said pick up some 4 or 5 things from this presentation, and why don't you share what are those 4 or 5 things that you're going to start, you know, that you're going to inculcate in your managerial style. Avoid using words also have given to you. Okay, anything else? I can see same names. Many of us are sleeping on Saturday morning, is it? Okay, ask team where you went wrong rather than pointing the mistake. Absolutely, always ask before you tell. Feedback needs to be very, very specific. It's easy to give a task related feedback, very difficult to give a behavior related feedback. So for that, you need to ensure that you have data points in place. Kinds of motivation, yes. Being human, not mechanical. Avoid micromanagement, yes, very much. And if that is what you've been doing, you know exactly what to stop from tomorrow. Appreciate, acknowledge for the good works done by your team members always. Okay. I talked about the Dangle example of constructive feedback, and the format is a very good one. I also talked about Sachin and Kamli's story. I talked about focusing on skill development, goal planning, and problem solving. Okay, great. So I think we have almost done our recap. Lovely. So okay, so very interesting video because I think this is the approach that we all should have, in the sense that no matter teams are different, no matter organization has different verticals, but eventually we are all working for one organization, and that is Prabhudas Liladhar. And you should never forget that in any situation, your responsibility for any situation is first to look at the organization first, and then look at the team, and then look at yourself. So as managers, last time when we talked about conflict and I got this situation, what if, what is the most important responsibility? So I'm just clubbing this with this session here, that your first responsibility is towards the organization. For the world, you are one. For the world, you are not this team and that team. There are many times that I've heard different organizations talk about ye team, wo team, aisa. कस्टमर्स और क्लाइंट्स को फर्क नहीं पड़ता है कौन सा टीम है या नहीं है, उनको ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एक है और वो दिखना चाहिए. So as long as you all are united in that approach and you all think that your work and your job is only aligned to the organization, everything falls in line. So rather than say working for myself, working for my team, if you feel you're working for your organization, everything else falls in line. So that was the last video, and this was the message here. So I'm done with my program. I am open for question and answers. Martin, over to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, participants. What we do is we will have a Q&A now. If you have any specific questions, you can use the raising of the hand feature which is there. You can raise your hand. Sham would unmute you and you can ask the question, specific question to Jolly, and Jolly would respond to that question. And we will do it for the next, say, 5 minutes or so. So be very precise in asking a question.
I've given them quite a few assignments this time.
Yeah, very true.
You can either type your questions on the chat box or in the Q&A.
Yeah, even you can type it in the chat box as well. I know you have been asking many questions throughout the session, but if there are any which are left over, we can answer those questions as well.
So if anybody thinks that there are subordinates who are very arrogant and they're very difficult, I'll say there are no difficult subordinates. It's just that we have to learn one more method of dealing with them differently. Ash has a question on the chat box. I'll just try answer that one.
Please.
So he says there's a missing point of circumstantial behavior. Can you throw light on that too? So circumstantial behavior, this will take to a very different tangent, is fight or flight behavior, fight, flight, freeze. So this typically happens in a very difficult scenario when you have only three reactions. Either you'll fight, or you will run away, or you'll freeze. Now, that happens only if it is a situation of survival, or that happens when I do not have the capability or resources to resolve that, problem at that point of time. So the best thing that we can talk in this situation is, when you are facing a problem like this, do not react instantly. Give yourself some time, drink some water, count backwards, allow some time, because had I got a board or something, I would have really been able to explain very well, because there are psychological evidences how you can work on that one. So the bottom line that I'm trying to say is that don't react at that time, allow some time, distract yourself, react after some time. Only then your circumstantial behavior will be a professional behavior and not be out of context. So that's the only way how you can deal with the situation. Okay, so that's about it. I think no more questions, Martin. I think everybody bought everything that I have sold them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Jolly. And I think one thing which we can really learn is the spheres of independence is something which is very good, because that also is correlated and directly proportional to the growth pattern of each and every individual in the company.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not only that the team members would grow, but also the organization moves ahead. So I think that is something which is very essential. Okay, and I have Rupesh Agarwal raising his hand. I think we will ask Rupesh Agarwal. We will unmute Rupesh to say, ask a question. 1 minute.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Basically, Jolly ji, just one question, like whatever we understood and learned in previous sessions and even today. So, don't you think ki this entire stuff cannot work in isolation in a particular department, say whether it is say an accounts department or say an IT department or say an any other department, you say a CR department. It has to be absorbed as a culture in the organization. So it has to flow from top to bottom. Unless it does not flow from top to bottom, so it doesn't help whether any individual department start working in line with that. The I would say the achievement will be very less in that case. So how to tackle this problem? How to tackle this issue particular?
So great question, Rupesh here. So yes, culture is always a reflection of the top. And whatever interactions I've had with Amisha ma'am, I've seen that, she's the one who's wanted these training programs because she wants everything to be more professionally redesigned in such a way that everything gets percolated from the top to the bottom. Also, because this is a managerial effectiveness program, we are basically, ensuring that our managers, our leaders, imbibe all of this in themselves. Because if they imbibe in your own SBU, you are the top, right? Your subordinates look up to you, and what you drive is what is going to percolate down. So, also assuming that since you are the manager, your manager is also attending the program here because he's another manager. So, if we all start making that little effort, it will be soon a part of the organizational culture. And also, I've always tried to talk about things which are practically implementable and not talking in the air, because I won't talk about the Harvard Business Review stuff because वो बहुत मुश्किल होता है implement करने के लिए. The organizational stage has to be very advanced, like the MNCs who are very clear cut and transparent, and there is a very ease of working there. Indian companies yet have to reach there because we are emotionally more charged and less transactional vis-a-vis an MNC culture. So here, what I see is that whatever I have talked about, it can be done individually and does not involve a stakeholder management. So whatever we have talked about today, for example, or even in conflict or emotional intelligence, it's all about yourself, whether it is inculcating self-discipline, or it is about collaborating attitude, or it is about listening, or it is about talking in a particular structure, or even today, I mean, the way it is about having that performance conversation. So, if each one of us start doing it, it will soon be a part of the land. That's all I can say. Yep. That's about it, Rupesh.
Thanks.
Have I answered you? Okay.
To some extent, yes. Because I feel ki there are many people who have their seniors here as well, their subordinates as well here, and many who have only subordinates here but no seniors here. So probably that was the reason I raised this particular point, ki how to solve this dilemma. So
No, it'll soon
nothing else.
become a part of the culture. I'm sure about it. Nitin has another question which I'll respond to. So, constructive feedback is important, and while doing that, we knowingly or unknowingly know the use of words and phrases which we should not, mention. By how can we overcome that? Practice and self-awareness. Simple. ये बिल्कुल सदगुरु का रिस्पॉन्स है. सेल्फ अवेयरनेस बढ़ा लो आप और प्रैक्टिस में ले आओ. That's it. It will soon become a part of your personality. So that's it.
Yeah, actually, Jolly, I would just say, would like to kind of say highlight what Rupesh has said. That's very, very valid. So what he has brought out is, say, always it has to be from the organizational change, change in organizational climate, change in organizational culture, everything and anywhere, it would always happen from top to the bottom. That is absolutely right, Rupesh. And also, as you have rightly answered, change also happens when each individual would understand his own responsibility to change and the need to change, and this would kind of say be a cumulative change would happen in the organization. I think that's absolutely correct, and I think we are in that process of being very transparent and also kind of say enhancing skill sets and moving forward and face the challenges ahead. And actually appreciate Rupesh for being so bold and courageous to bring that question. And also your response was absolutely spot on.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Jolly. I think we had a wonderful session. Before we wind up, we will just say throw up the poll so that we can get the training session feedback. I would request Shyam to throw up the poll. Okay, we will stop the poll now, and we will just see the poll results. Yeah, it has been a very good feedback, Jolly. Means as usual, everyone liked this session, and I personally can vouch for all the participants that it has been a wonderful session as usual, and we are looking forward for the fourth session, which is more interesting, situational leadership, and a few other say blend of topics. And we will meet you next time. And thank you all for participating, for sparing your time on Saturday. And I believe this would be meaningful, not only for your work life, but also in the life of the organization and personally. And have a nice weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Martin.